Hey, welcome to the Walnut Log Studio. It's time for a product review, so today we're talking tools. As some of you may remember, I recently submitted a video to the Nova Woodworking Infinity Chuck Challenge. This is a vessel that I made. The specifications were pretty loose, but we needed to do a demonstration showing a lidded vessel. This was my entry. As luck would have it, I was the winner. Aw, yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is the Nova Woodworking Supernova 2 Infinity. Check this bad boy out. As you can see, there are no screws. Why? Because the Infinity system is a quick change system that, well, basically it speeds up the entire process. I really like it. There's an awful lot of applications for this. I do have a couple of negative points that I'll bring up in a couple of minutes, but let's go first with function. As you can see, the standard Nova T-handle has been slightly modified. It has these two little metal nubbin ends, and those nubbin ends go in these little recesses on each of the jaw holders. There's a spring system of some sort in there. The process is very simple. You apply a little bit of pressure, push in the tool, the jaw slides out. That's it. You apply a little bit of pressure, it moves the locking mechanism, and the jaw slides out. It is very fast. It is very simple. If I can do it, you can do it. You can do this on the lathe. You can do this on the lathe. You can't change standard jaws on the lathe. You can change these jaws on the lathe. I have opted for purchasing one set of the Infinity jaws. I believe that's a number 2. It's a small size, which is what I wanted. I also purchased one set of the jaw adapters. You can use these to adapt your standard Nova jaws to become Infinity jaws. So let's real quick put the standard jaws with the adapters back on. It's a little clunky because it's not sitting on the lathe, but that's kind of the purpose of this technology, is so that you can do this while your chuck is still on the lathe. You remove the entire step of taking the chuck off the lathe, and please know that this is me fumbling. It has nothing to do with the technology. It's a little awkward laying on the table. Okay, there's a point in the negative. It's a little awkward to do that while sitting on the table, but as I stated, the point is to not do this when it's on the table. It's to do it when it's over on the lathe. The chuck came with the standard Nova worm screw, which in my opinion is one of the best in the industry. It's the perfect length. It's a single screw. It does exactly what I need it to do. It fits in other chucks, so you don't have to buy a bunch of other chucks, and I really like it. That's one of my favorites. Okay, what else? Let's go back into removal mode. I'll give you a close-up of the spring system. Alright, there's the face of the chuck. There's the spring action. It's really simple. It's based on the original Supernova, so if you've had a Supernova 2, it's the same size. I gotta tell you though, this chuck is a bit beefier. I have not weighed it side by side with my original Supernova 2, but it is definitely a heavier product. Alrighty, so one of my lights burned out. That was very interesting. Anyway, okay, other things I like. I like the fact that the jaws that are manufactured for the Supernova 2 are beefy. They are really good jaws as compared to the original jaws from the original Supernova 2. There's nothing wrong with these. These are better. Looking at the pictures of the other jaws sets that are available, they're all very sturdy looking. I don't know if they've changed their materials, but I like what they're doing, and I'm planning on buying other sets of jaws that are specifically made to be used with the Infinity. I like that the jaws can be quickly changed when the chuck is on the lathe. I'll go ahead and post a clip of me doing that live during another video test with a project that I was working on a little bit ago, and you can see that here. Let's talk about my chuck for a few minutes. This is the Nova Woodworking Supernova 2 Infinity chuck. Watch this. This is really cool. I'm able to change my jaws while the chuck is on the lathe, and it takes me almost exactly 36 seconds. 4 jaws come off, and 1, 2, 3, 4 new jaws go right back on. This is a really nice piece of equipment. I am very happy to have it. I'm still working on learning all of the variety of things you can do with it. Unfortunately, I only have 2 sets of jaws to work with, but this was the perfect project to showcase what this new technology can do. Okay, because I don't work for Nova, I have a couple of negative points. Dun dun dun. One of them. This. Seriously, Nova. I hate with a passion Allen key wrenches with the rounded end. If you are in a static situation where you need to reach in and torque on an Allen screw that may be hard to get to, that you can't get a standard size tool in, yeah, okay, the rounded end is great. In an application where your socket is on a lathe, it's on a revolving structure, I can easily rotate the chuck to a point where I can easily access the Allen socket. I don't need this much play. This bothers me. Out of everything that I could give you a negative on, this is my biggest complaint. So that being said, what else don't I like? Honestly, I get what you're doing with the adapters. I understand that you're trying to allow people the ability to use jaws that they already have by purchasing the adapters. My problem, and I'll go ahead and put a couple of these jaws back on. Again, it's awkward because it's off the lathe. And I'm kind of a klutz, so a lot of this is my fault. My problem here is that there's an enormous amount of space in between my original jaws, which are not as beefy. You know, there's the difference. They're not as beefy as the jaws made for this chuck, and they are now, you know, a fair distance from the surface of the chuck. I'm sure your engineers have worked this out. I'm sure it's not really a problem, but it makes me nervous. As a traditional turner who has only used what's been available, you know, on the market in standard chucks, that makes me a little nervous. So I have to say on that, I personally find that as a slight negative. And then the only functional negative that I've been able to come up with And I do admit I have tried to abuse this chuck. I have. I've torqued on it more than I should. You know, if you're going to test something, you might as well test it as hard as you can. And since it was free, if I ruined it myself, then I wouldn't feel too bad. But I got to tell you, I really, 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 really like it. The only functional drawback is if you're using woods that produce very fine dust. If you're working with, if you're doing a lot of sanding on a piece, if you're working with something that produces a greasy dust like teak. I work specifically with teak. I work specifically with Paduke on a couple of projects using this chuck, and the locking mechanisms here, inside here, can get gummed up with very fine, very greasy dust, and that does make releasing the chuck difficult. It might be simply a matter of housekeeping. It might be, you know, one of the very few design flaws that we have here. But as an independent reviewer, my job is to find positives and negatives, and unfortunately that is a functional negative, albeit the only one that I was able to come up with for this review. So, all in all, I love it. I'm keeping it. You cannot have it back. I will not sell it. I will not trade in my standard Supernova 2 either, because it's doing a good job and I have jaws and accessories that I'm using that one with as well. Please keep an eye out for some of my upcoming videos. I will find ways to utilize the technology, and I will be purchasing more dedicated jaws that are specifically made for the Infinity system. It's a good idea. The adapters are a good idea. I understand. I'm just not as comfortable with it, and I'd rather spend a little more money and have dedicated jaws for this chuck. I can assure you I will not be buying any other jaws for my traditional Supernova. It has become a dedicated cold jaw chuck, and I'm happy with that. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the Nova Woodworking Infinity Supernova 2 chuck review.